When a man desires something so deeply that he's willing to stake his entire future on a turn of a wheel to get it, he is sure to win. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where I talk about books, habits, and health. Last month, I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is the #1 best-selling self-help book of all time, and the first part in my series where I go over all of the best-selling self-help books. In the first part of this video, I'm going to be going over the book itself and what I thought about Napoleon Hill's writing, and then the second part, I'm going to be talking about my implementation and how I actually felt it impacted my life and how I think it can impact your life. So the first part of this book has a terrific message, but it has a ton of survivorship bias. I think the worst instance of this is when he talks about his son. So his son was born without the ability to hear, and instead of enrolling his kid in a hard of hearing school where he has special attention, Napoleon Hill basically said that, no, my kid isn't going to grow up any different from any other kid despite his lack of hearing. I am basically going to will him into hearing. And by some miracle, his kid actually develops the ability to hear through a procedure. But this is an extremely arrogant and frankly dangerous thing to put in a book, because somebody who has a kid who is hard of hearing might read this and say, no, my kid is going to grow up the exact same as every other kid. They aren't going to learn sign language, which is what Napoleon Hill literally did to his son. And then if their child doesn't miraculously develop an ability to hear, well, by the logic of this book, Napoleon Hill basically says that they didn't want it bad enough. They didn't use the power of their mind to correct their child's deafness, and that's why they're deaf. After Napoleon Hill is done talking about his son, he moves on to a part that I think is actually very powerful, and I'm glad that he included it in this book, and that is the power of autosuggestion. So autosuggestion is basically using the power of mantras.
20-inch biceps. 20.
And you can use a mantra over and over and over again, and eventually your external monologue becomes your internal monologue. At first you think rich and then you grow rich. If you continually tell yourself that a millionaire, your actions will align with that of a millionaire. I relate the same message to my clients in fitness, which is if you believe that you're a fit and healthy person, your actions will embody that of a fit and healthy person. With that being said, I think that Napoleon Hill kind of glosses over the role that having luck plays in actually amassing wealth. In fact, in the book, he says, riches come, if at all, in response to a definite demand, based on the application of definite principles and not by chance or luck. So clearly this downplays the role that privilege has on a lot of people amassing wealth. In the next part of the book, Napoleon Hill calls into question the effectiveness of schools. He criticizes schools as placing too much emphasis on developing general intelligence and not enough on the practical aspects of making a difference in the world. And I think he has a pretty good point here, but I think he underplays the value of general intelligence a little bit too much. In Range by David Epstein, he talks about the importance of being well-read and being able to analogize from one subject matter to another. Where we see a lot of breakthroughs and progress in society, it actually comes from principles from one subject matter being applied to another. I do agree with Napoleon Hill that the education system could use a lot of work, and maybe it would be better to have more of a Montessori vibe to our general education, but those kids will still need to be brought up to a baseline level of knowledge in mathematics and science and English and be able to function as a regular human being. After that, he kind of goes off the rails and he starts talking about something called sex transcendence. In my view, this part of the book is extremely sexist and very misogynistic. The point that he's trying to make is that men who are successful hold a higher value in the eyes of most prospective mates. And this is true. Most everyone I know wants to feel attractive and will try to pursue something in order to accomplish that, whether that be to get a promotion at work or get more money or create a better body. We all want to feel more attractive to some degree. The issue is when Napoleon Hill talks about women as a means to an end. He basically presents the idea that we can use women to motivate us, men, to become more successful. In one of the more egregious parts in this chapter, he says, the men of greatest achievement are those with highly developed sex natures, men who have learned the art of sex transmutation. The men who have accumulated the greatest fortunes and achieved outstanding recognition in literature, art, industry, architecture, and the professions were motivated by the influences of a woman. Another thing that stands out in this book is that Napoleon Hill almost exclusively talks about rich, white, old, successful men. I think they talk about a few women in it, but it's like 90-10. Not to completely excuse the book, but it was written in 1931. I do think, however, that this 21st century revised edition needs another revision. There's a few different practical suggestions that Napoleon Hill makes throughout the book. One of them being to reread chapter 3 every single night, which I didn't do. The other part that I didn't do is that he gives steps on how to be more persistent, which maybe I'm just fooling myself, but I feel like I'm pretty persistent and very consistent in what I do, so I skipped that part as well. The part that I did do was the mantra part. So I've been saying my mantra 3 times in the morning and 3 times at night consistently every day for about a month now.
20.
And I absolutely love it. I think that keeping your goals top of mind is a really good way to make sure that your day-to-day actions align with your long-term goals. Since implementing my mantra, I've actually made significant progress on a project that I'm working about that I can't talk about just yet. And this is going to be something that I'm going to maintain moving forward, having read this book. Overall, I'd rate this book 3.5 stars out of 5 stars, which is not a high rating for me. I love the mantra and positive self-talk aspect of this book, but I get caught up with the survivorship bias and the misogyny. On August 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be hosting a book club on this book specifically. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. If you're interested in joining, please leave me a comment down below. I'd be thrilled to chat with you about this book. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.